Joining us now, the chair of the Republican National Committee, Ronna McDaniel. On Friday, Chairman, the U.S. set a new single-day record for COVID cases in the country, more than 85,000. That same day, here's what the president had to say. Take a look.
We're not entering a dark winter. We're entering the final turn and approaching the light at the end of the tunnel. That's the way I looked at it.
The single worst day of the pandemic, and the president says we're entering, or we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. What is he talking about?
Well, Chris, as you know, we have a vaccine on the horizon. There are many, many trials that are in phase 3. We're getting closer and closer to that vaccine. Obviously, the testing has ramped up. The therapeutics are working well. Mortality rates are down. So we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel, especially when we get this vaccine at the end of this year or early next year.
But the top experts say we're not going to see a vaccine till the end of the year. The president's own health experts say that it's not going to be readily available to the public till this summer. Again, let's look at the actual numbers of what we're going through right now. 85,085 new cases on Friday. Hospitalizations increased in 38 states over the past week. More than 170 counties in 36 states designated hotspots. Deaths averaging over 1,000 a day. Meanwhile, the president is holding rallies, thousands of people packed together, most of them not wearing masks. And again, here's what the president said yesterday.
You turn on television, right? COVID, 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 COVID. A plane goes down, 500 people dead. They don't talk about it. COVID, 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 COVID. By the way, on November 4th, you won't hear about it anymore.
Again, what is the president talking about?
Well, let's look at the timeline. Chris, the president saved lives by shutting down travel to China, which Joe Biden obviously disagreed with. He shut down the economy that was booming, 30 days to slow the spread so that we could get the PPE, we could get the ventilators, and we could make sure the hospitals were not overwheled. Now we've seen
we are talking
in
about
record
things that
time.
But let's
Chairman
talk about
McDaniel,
no,
because it is an important timeline.
You're talking about things that happened last January.
But it's an important timeline,
March.
Chris, because this is in less than a year.
He's making it sound, but he's making it sound as if this is a media invention after November 4th, that we're not going to hear about COVID anymore.
But
we had 85,000 cases on Friday.
If you can let me finish, the point is, if what has happened in less than a year, now we have the testing. We've tested more than any other country. We're on track to a vaccine because of Operation Warp Speed, and the president using the military will be able to distribute that vaccine quickly. We're seeing mortality rates go down. We see that we have enough ventilators. We have enough PPE. The hospitals are not being overwhelmed. This is a very contagious virus that has hit the whole world. This is a global pandemic. Rates are up across the world. We've never seen anything like this. And in less than a year, it is remarkable that we are on track to a vaccine. These are positive steps. Of course, this is something we've never seen before. Of course, the president has harnessed every part of the private sector, of the government, to make sure that we're making these strides. And Joe Biden continues to scare the American people and say dark days are ahead. And the president chooses to be positive and say there is a bright future ahead, and we are on track to a vaccine to combat a virus like the world has never seen before. These are positive things, and it's happened under the leadership of President Trump.
I want to move on. But I just have to point out, in fact, we are running out of hospital beds in a number of states, and as I pointed out, hospitalizations are up in 38 states right now. Let's move on to another subject. Since the debate, the president has been hitting Joe Biden for comments he made about energy, that he will transition from the oil industry. Now, Biden has been trying to clean that up. He says, as we saw in Jackie Heinrich's piece, he's not going to ban fracking, that he's talking about cutting oil subsidy or federal subsidies for the oil industry. Don't you believe him?
Listen, Joe Biden is saying whatever it takes, and he's lying to the American people. You saw it, Chris. He wouldn't answer about packing the Supreme Court. We still don't have a definitive answer on whether he's going to upend the third branch of government. When he's in Pennsylvania, he's for fracking. When he's outside of Pennsylvania, he's against fracking. He says he's not going to raise taxes on people making less than $400,000 a year. That is just factually incorrect. Any organization that's looked at his $4 trillion tax hike is saying it'll raise taxes on 82% of American families. Everything that Joe Biden's running on is, how do I be not transparent to the American people? How do I hide in my basement? How do I prevent the people of this country from actually knowing how I'm going to govern? What we do know, it will be the most progressive, radical takeover of our country if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris get in, especially if they fundamentally transform that third branch of government and remove our checks and balances and stack the Supreme Court with political appointees that have no accountability to the American people. It is a game changer. And again, he continues to not be forced to answer that question definitively.
All right, I want to ask you about another question. I'm going to ask Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, in the next segment about the Hunter Biden email story, but I want to ask you one question. Do you have any proof, because he's denied it, do you have any proof that Joe Biden ever took one penny from either a foreign country or a foreign company?
I think that's incumbent upon the press to start investigating. I think what's frightening is we should have a free and fair press that should be looking at a laptop that has not been disputed by the Biden campaign to be authentic. These emails are deeply troubling, as it looks like Hunter Biden is negotiating with a Chinese energy company to profit not just for himself but for his father, but it warrants an investigation. That's not my job. That's the press's job. That's the FBI, those who have this laptop, to look into it. But what's amazing, Chris, and I know you agree with me.
The FBI had the hard drive. If I may,
but why are these stories being censored?
Let me ask you. The FBI has had the hard drive since December. Why haven't they come up with any evidence?
I don't know. I'm not in the internal aspects of that investigation. But what's even more disturbing, Chris, is Twitter is censoring these stories. The press is saying this has been debunked without even investigating it. Why are they doing that? Why are they covering for this story? If this were the Trump family and this laptop had emerged, it would be all over the news 24/7. It is frightening, as we are looking at a candidate who's going to take us closer to socialism, that we have a press that is showing itself not to be free and fair. And I'm glad you're asking this question, and I'm glad you'll ask Gretchen Whitmer. If the Vice President of the United States was monetizing his position to benefit his family, that's deeply concerning.
Let me, Chairman, let me ask you a couple of more questions. You're not the chair of the Trump re-election campaign. You're the chair of the Republican Party. So let me ask you about the Senate races. I want to put some of those races up on the screen. Real Clear Politics lists one GOP senator in a race that's leaning Democratic at this point, Gardner in Colorado. And it says that 7 Republican incumbents are in toss-ups: McSally in Arizona, Ernst in Iowa, Perdue in Georgia, Collins in Maine, Daines in Montana, Tillis in North Carolina, and Graham in South Carolina. The president reportedly told donors this week it will be real tough to hold on to a Republican Senate.
You know, the president has done more for the senators with what he's done with helping the Win Red platform, with small dollar online fundraising, with the ground game the RNC has put in place in all of these states. We want to keep the Senate. Like I talked, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not hiding the fact that they want to get rid of the filibuster and they want to fundamentally change the third branch of government. But is it going to be real tough?
Is it going to be real tough?
This is a tight race. We know this, but the trend lines are good in these states. You're seeing McSally gain momentum. You also didn't mention candidates like John James and Jason Lewis, who are competitive races against Democrat incumbents. So we are going to keep the Senate. We're working hard to do that.
But let me ask you one question, because it raises issues about whether or not the president is a help or a hindrance. You saw several Republican senators up for re-election this week distancing themselves from President Trump. Take a look.
I'm not at all apologetic for having fought for my values against his in places where I think his are deficient, not just for a Republican, but for an American.
Are you proud of your support for President Trump?
I'm proud to be fighting for Arizona every single day.
Is that a yes or a no for President Trump?
Putting legislation on President Trump's desk.
any problem with Republicans running for the Senate, distancing themselves, running away from the president, if that will help them get reelected?
You know, I don't see these senators distancing themselves from the president. I mean, Ben Sass is an exception, obviously, but these senators recognize
wait a minute, Martha McSally. Wait. Martha McSally was asked twice, "Are you proud of your support for President Trump?"
And she's going to rallies with him, and she's all over the state with him. Martha McSally supports the president. She certainly supports lowering regulation, the largest tax cut in history, rule of law justices, building up our military. The things this president has done prior to the pandemic and now coming out of it with 11.4 million jobs added. We've added 1.3 million jobs in the past 3 months. We're under 8% unemployment. I mean, listen, Joe Biden is saying dark days are ahead. President Trump is saying the best is yet to come. There are two very contrasting visions for this country. Joe Biden saying, I'm going to raise taxes right out of the gate. The president saying, I'm going to continue to grow this economy, which we're already seeing coming out of this pandemic.
Chairman McDaniel, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you. I think you have made clear what you think the contrast between these two candidates is. Thank you. Thanks for your time this weekend.
Thanks for having me.